Today, the girls do some prototype work on a 2016 Camaro. It's already got a new exhaust. Now it's time for some rear wheel horsepower with a bolt-on supercharger. Then they hand over the keys and let the SS owner have some fun.
We're so glad to see you again. Well, in the shop today, we've got a 2016 Camaro SS. It's got an LT1 engine under the hood, same as the Corvette C7. And this car was actually a prototype car for Borla exhaust. They had their hands on it for a couple of months, and they made the first ever exhaust system from Borla for this 2016 Camaro SS. Well, now we've got it in our hands, and it's time to bump up the power even more and make this thing really sweet.
We are doing that by adding a, what else? Supercharger. Now this is also one of the first, this is a newly released kit from Edelbrock. So we got one of the very first kits. It's going to give us 580 horsepower to the rear wheels. That is a full 140 horsepower over stock. So huge increase. It's gonna be a whole lot of fun to drive when we're done.
And not only that, this is another female-owned car, and she's going to be stopping by to check on our progress a little later, and she is my kind of gal, rocking the bumblebee look here. And this is the real deal, because if you check out the side, she's even have the Autobot badge. So we've already started some work, so let's just keep it going. Woo!
We are deep into the ripping and tearing phase of this project, getting everything out of the way. Next step is going to be pulling that intake manifold out and out of the way.
I think I got just about every connector in the way so we don't pull it with a bunch of spaghetti still attached. We just want the meatball portion.
Did you get all the bolts on your side? Or?
Not yet. All loose.
Come to mama. You got it? Or I got it? Or somebody got it?
All right, we are ready for the swap right here. And I'm gonna continue prepping.
Beautiful. One step down, and you got all the beautiful stuff here. Very
I
nice.
sure do. This is a heck of a lot heavier than that.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
We're definitely going to need all hands on deck to get this in. Our Edelbrock Eforce supercharger system has got everything we need in this entire kit, and it's got minimal components, so we'll actually be able to fit this under the stock hood. Don't have to make any modifications, and also without a jack shaft. So this system also has a unique and efficient inlet configuration, which results in a shorter, less restrictive intake path for improved airflow. So we're gonna get more horsepower and more torque with this beauty.
Beautiful.
More airflow, more power.
Sounds good. And the kit comes with everything else we need. Obviously, we love Edelbrock for doing that. We've got our lovely intercooler, which is why we took the fascia off. We had to clear that out of the way so we can make room for this. We've got our intake risers. We've got our tuner that I mentioned earlier. So all the good stuff and a little bit more work under the hood before we're ready to get this actually installed. And I think we've got to swap some stuff over.
Yeah, the first step is to swap that throttle body.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so removing this old fuel line extension here. Pop that off. Get that set. All right. All right. Since I made a little modification to our fuel line extension, we're gonna have to do the same with our foam valley insulator, or else this is never gonna lay flat. So all I'm gonna do is take this channel right here and just cut it out, and that's gonna give us the room we need. Took my new latest and greatest, sharpest razor for this, and I'm just gonna follow the contours, kind of like trying to color inside the lines in school. Not bad. I should show my elementary school teacher this.
All right, so we are needing to get our harmonic balancer removed so we can replace it with a new one, which means the belts have to come off. The main one obviously comes off just with a tensioner, nice and easy, but our AC belt does not have a tensioner, which means it is a stretch fit belt. A little bit more complicated. If you don't need to reuse the belt, just cut it off. But if you do need to reuse it, there is a special tool. However, if you don't have the special tool, there's a couple of different little tricks you can use to try to basically walk this belt off the pulley. Simple thing you can do is just get a little piece of metal, really thin, as thin as possible. Get rid of any sharp edges so we don't damage the belt. We're gonna slide this in here, wedge it in a little bit, and then we're gonna crank the engine over. And if you're weak like me, use my favorite tool ever, cheater bar. And we'll crank this over. Kind of wedging in between the pulley and the belt. And then once we get a little bit of distance there, then use a pry bar. Try to get a good spot on there where you can pry it off. A little something like that.
With all the belts off that car, the girls get to flex their muscles even more after the break when they break loose that tough harmonic balancer bolt.
Welcome back to All Girls Garage. Apparently, removing our harmonic balancer is a little bit more complicated than we had originally anticipated. Getting it off with a 1/2-inch gun was just not gonna happen, and of course, our larger guns wouldn't fit in there. So, conveniently, they make a cool tool that is going to hold our flywheel still. That's gonna come in handy when we're going back together too, because we've gotta reach an insane amount of foot-pounds of torque to get that tightened down properly. So we're gonna install this little tool here. Unfortunately, in order to get it in place, we had to do a whole heap of stuff. Our exhaust manifold had to come out, starter had to come out to access the 2 holes that our special tool is going to mount to. So I'm just gonna set this in place. Those teeth are going to engage the teeth on the flywheel, tighten everything down, and then that will hold everything nice and still so we can crank on that harmonic balancer bolt as hard as we need to. That should be good.
Got the breaker bar out. That means time to use some muscle. Just kidding. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. It's gonna be that bad.
Right there.
Wow.
We won. High fives.
Yeah, buddy. Broke the harmonic balancer loose from underneath the car. Now we dropped it down and we're gonna work from the top to get this thing out. Got this puller that actually wraps around the balancer and that's going to pull it away from the engine block. This little bugger out. Pull her out. No. It was a process to get this balancer off. Okay, so tables side by side, we've got the old harmonic balancer and the new harmonic balancer. Now, to put this back in, we basically reverse the process, but according to the instructions, we're actually gonna use the stock bolt for the first step in the installation process of the new balancer. Now, because we're torquing this down with some pretty major torque specs, this bolt's actually gonna stretch and it might even get damaged. So at first, I'll put the balancer back on, put the stock bolt in, do the torque specs according to the instruction kit that came from Edelbrock, and once we have that down and also use the degree wheel to make sure that those are correct as well, we'll put then the new bolt in place and then finish it off with the rest of the torque specs.
Well, the harmonic balancer is in, and I decided it was a good idea to give the girls a little bit of a break. So I went ahead and installed our cooler reservoir there, our belt, and our fan. And there are a couple new components that you're gonna have to add and move things around, but you're in luck because Edelbrock gives you everything that you need. Brackets, hoses, extension hoses, so you're not left out in the cold having to hunt all this stuff down for yourself. So here's the water pump for our intercooler that's going to mate up with our supercharger. So we have a new bracket for it, and luckily it uses factory bolts right on your chassis. So if you get down here, I went ahead and installed this black bracket. And as you can see on the water pump, this isolator, there's a unique shape right there, and we're gonna mate up that shape on the same shape on the bracket here. And so I'm just gonna slide this down and try and do it top down here, feel around. All right, with that in place, we're gonna keep moving. And our next step is going to be the tensioner, and this is where it's going to start to speed up because now we're putting things back on, no more tearing down.
Because our supercharger is belt driven, of course, we need to set up a number of pulleys and tensioners in order to be able to run the supercharger. So we've got this little bracket that's going to mount to bolts that are already in the heads and the block. So this is going to mount up right in here, and that's going to house our pulley and tensioner assembly. Then we've got a couple of other tensioner or just pulleys that are going to run right here. And that should be all we need so that we can get the supercharger installed and run off a belt. So just get these lined up and bolted in.
Almost time to get that massive new Edelbrock supercharger in this 2016 Camaro SS. Now, the new Edelbrock kit came with these runners because there is a differentiation in the size from the stock intake manifold with this new supercharger. So, already got one runner installed. It was easy to differentiate between these two because the driver's side actually has a spot for the fuel line. Now, I did have to transfer these O-ring gaskets from the original intake manifold to these runners, and you just want to check to make sure that these aren't damaged or torn in any way before we put them on the brand new runners. There's also 2 dowel pins on this runner, so it's pretty easy to line up. And naturally, you've got the cylinder head ports, so it should line up just nicely. Slide this in. Okay, got some wiring to move. And it's caught. There it is. Perfect. So I've also got 5 bolts to put in, and I've hit those with some thread locker already. I'll torque those down to specs according to the instructions. Of course, you know you want to do an even distribution of tightening those bolts down. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 in that order. Once that's done, you can peel off that nice, clear, protective plastic tape on the cylinder ports on our brand new intake manifold, and we're one step closer to this supercharger being in place.
All the Camaro SS engine is missing now is a supercharger. It gets that, plus an intercooler and some final tweaks before it's ready for the test drive.
On the table.
Okay.
Right on top like a cake topper.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, we're good. Good.
Golden. Got the low profile too.
Nice. That wasn't too bad. All right, so we've got our supercharger set in place. We applied a little bit of Loctite to each of the bolts and got them just barely hand tight. Now there's a very specific torque pattern that you need to follow, and we're gonna first go through the torque pattern and set all of them to 4 foot-pounds, and then we're gonna go through the whole pattern again and set them to 8 foot-pounds. I had to convert that over because we only have a Newton-meter 1/4 inch torque ratchet here.
To keep our supercharger running nice and cool, I'm about to install the lower temperature radiator. Now this is the back side, so I've applied some foam strips. That way we don't get any knocking. And you can see it's different from the front side where we have our inlet barbs. So this is just gonna sit right in front of our radiator here. I'm gonna try and slip it right through this wire. It's gonna fit nice and neat. There we go. And all I'm doing is just aligning these brackets with these holes, and they supply us with these cool little push pins to go right inside. So I'm gonna secure that there. Secure the other side. All right. Secure this bottom bracket here, align it with the hole. And now we just have to reach around a bunch of plastic, but actually from the back, and move our way forward.
Now, as you could tell when Christy and I were trying to break our crank bolt loose, it was extremely tight, and that's for a reason. As your crankshaft flexes and twists, your harmonic balancer absorbs an incredible amount of kinetic energy. And so to make sure that your harmonic balancer is locked into place, ARP has developed these ultra-strong 200,000 PSI bolts that will ensure that you get maximum clamping force. Now, basically, that 200,000 PSI rating is tensile strength. So they pull as hard as they can with a special machine on that bolt to see when it'll stretch or break. Now, they also come with a extra large 1/4 inch thick wide washer area, as well as this deep 12-point head, which will allow you to use a deep socket. Make sure you don't strip that head when you're trying to get it loose or tighten it down. And of course, they're all manufactured right here in the US of A.
For DIYers, no toolbox is complete without duct tape, zip ties, and now I'm adding the WD-40 Easy Reach. It has a permanently attached 8-inch flexible straw that bends and keeps its shape to reach those hidden stubborn bolts, spray into crevices, and turn corners. And not only that, your Smart Straw works in 2 ways. Just flip it up, and you can get a precise pinpoint stream, or flip it down to use the other nozzle for a wider spray. So now, along with the rest of your WD-40 arsenal, you're ready to kick some automotive tasks.
Is your engine getting robbed of performance and better gas mileage? Well, the Z-Max Micro Lubricant is the perfect answer for you. You might be asking, what exactly is a micro lubricant? Well, it's those tiny little micro lubricant molecules that soak deeper in the metal than motor oil or fuel, and this actually protects your engine and fuel system from those harmful carbon deposits that rob your engine of power and more horsepower. Now, this can be added right in your engine with oil. It doesn't change the chemistry of the oil, or right in your fuel system also. And with the fuel formula, it actually helps prevent corrosion and damage in your fuel system. Ethanol fuel creates moisture. So Z-Max is a great additive for any vehicle. We've all got a million things to do during the day, so often washing your car goes on the back burner. Well, it's time to put washing your car back on the to-do list with Mother's California Gold Waterless Wash and Wax. Bring back your car's showroom shine in a matter of minutes, inside or out, day or night. Now everyone has time to spray on and wipe off. Use waterless wash and wax on every part of your car. Paint, trim, chrome, wheels, it can do it all. No hose, no problem. When applying, make sure to spray on plenty of product, which allows its ultra-slick formula to dissolve dirt and grime. After saturating the surface, I like to spray a little on the towel and then wipe, safely carrying away the dirt. Using a second towel to buff it off reveals a shiny, scratch-free, and perfectly clean surface. Waterless wash and wax is a quick and easy way to wash and wax without any water, giving me more time to accomplish the other tasks on my to-do list.
This tip is brought to you by Mother's Polish. There's no shine like Mother's.
Welcome back. Welcome back. The front of this vehicle is actually starting to look like a car again. The intercooler is now in place and some of the other front components. Now that the intercooler's here, we've got hoses running from that to the intake, as well as from the water pump to the intake. Now, there was this piece of plastic here that kind of ran in the way of this hose. We did have to cut just a small hole out, no big deal. And now we're all set with that, and you're working on a little bit of that beep beep.
I am working on the beep beep, otherwise known as horns. Basically, they used to sit kind of right where the intercooler is, so that's not going to work. So the kit comes with this little extender bracket, kind of relocates them. So using the same hole and the same bolt, they now sit right down there.
It's gonna be nice and loud like that.
Super easy breezy. Oh yeah, that's what they're supposed to do.
Looking good right there. Wait until you see this. Look at what we've done.
Oh my gosh. Hey.
Yeah, so we have the Camaro owner here, and as always happens, we were fighting as to who was going to test drive this thing first. But I think you've waited long enough. So it's time to get out on the racetrack and decimate some Decepticons.
You barely got to drive this thing. You had this for what, a week before Borla took it from you?
Yes, we only had it for 9 days. Borla had it for 2 months. Sent it back with an attack exhaust system on it. I am dying to get behind the wheel of this thing.
We definitely went through quite a bit of heavy lifting to get this done. New supercharger in, new heat exchanger, new harmonic balancer. We almost killed ourselves trying to do that one. And of course, got a new tune in there. It should be ready to roll and provide you lots of hours of happy driving.
Oh my gosh.
Cuddle to the floor.
So it's your first look. What do you think?
Love it. Super excited to see how this thing runs.
Okay, lots of fast, that's for sure. Well, if you get any speeding tickets, make sure to send those to lousandiego@carfix.tv.
Will do.
Hey, what up?
What was that O for? It was only 95.
Car behind us was like a cop. Seriously.
Yeah, it is. Good eye on seeing the poo-poo coming up behind.